I'm agreeing for sure on that.
See that?
I didn't catch anything.
Well, my question is the stupid statement that the college kid made, is that any worse than asking to kill Missourians and genetically filthy Oklahomans? He must be a journalism school.
I don't know.
That's the idiot. That's dumb. Here's a prime example.
Never thought that I could do that.
Well, to the 20-some copies I'm adding, President Meyer's on too. I mean, so what are we teaching them? Here's what we're learning.
Yep.
Check up there sometimes who's on and who's not.
Is,
Raphael, how you doing? Pretty great. How about yourself? I'm kind of tired, but thank you.
It seems like that kind of Monday, huh?
I guess. Neil, how you doing?
Good. How are you all? Good.
Good.
oh, yes.
Morning, Greg. How you doing?
Leon's gonna be on.
It is.
He usually is, yeah. I'm pretty sure David might want to talk too, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, I know David's gonna want to say something. Yeah. We'll get them on first. Go from there.
Sir, can I get your name?
Yeah, Luke Townsend.
Luke, how you doing?
Not too bad this morning. How are you doing?
All right. Luke, your dad, Scott.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah. Remember you when you were a much younger man.
That seems to be the case for most people. Probably the city days.
Yeah, we used to shoot archery together.
Oh, okay, nice.
Sir, can I get your name?
Doug Barrett.
Sorry.
Doug Barrett.
Doug Barrett? Thank you, Doug. You here with any organization, Doug?
Say again?
You here with any organization?
400 North Creative. Media, 400 North Creative.
Lily, we got Julie now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Leon, I think.
Okay.
Oh, there he is. Morning, Leon.
Greg, how you doing?
My stuff together.
It's 8:30, time for the meeting start. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm taking it, we have some people that want to talk, but I want to get with Julie and Dave first. So Julie, could you start off public comment?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay. So I'm going to give you Friday numbers for the Kansas numbers because they have not updated that. They'll do that later this morning. So as of Friday, Kansas had a total of 13,538 positives with 1,128 hospitalizations, 264 deaths statewide. Riley County, as of this morning, has 215 confirmed positives. Out of those, 129 are considered active cases. We have had 83 recover and the 3 deaths. We currently have 1 COVID positive patient in the hospital on a ventilator. We have 174 tests pending, and we've had a total of 2,505 negative tests in the county so far. So that puts us at an 8.5% positive rate as of today. About 52% of our cases are from that 18 to 24-year-old age range with the average age of about 31. And most of our positives have been male, about 57% have been male. As you know, KDHE has declared a total of 4 outbreaks in our area last week, including KSU football, Aggieville, and then 2 subsets in Aggieville, which include Rockabilly Deli and Bar 785. We have been in contact with all of those individuals that have tested positive in their contacts and the bars, actually. They both decided to close on their own. I do have a call later today with Rich at Rockabilly to discuss reopening procedures. We've been busy with contact tracing, of course, with our uptick in our positives. That makes us very busy here at the health department with contact tracing. We've added to our contact tracing team. So we've moved those operations to the EOC as of this morning. They're actually going through the training right now. We have 3 teams doing investigations and calling individuals. This will ensure that we're reaching all of our contacts and that we're able to monitor them. And also, since they're all in the same room, all of our contact tracers are in the same room, they'll be able to see all together what's going on, what the situation looks like. We still have our screening line available, 323-6400. That is being operated mainly by Jada, our MCH nurse, but she has some help this week. Last week, she had an average of 70 callers a day. So when she got off the phone, she'd be picking it up again. So to help her out a little bit, we've had another nurse volunteer to help with that. That is available weekdays, 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. We still have our swabbing station right out front. That will likely be through July. We actually had a clinical task force meeting last night, and it was discussed about keeping that swabbing station up. So we did contact Fort Riley, since we do have that tent is being barred from Fort Riley, and they assured us that we can keep it throughout the month. the month of July. We do have our command staff meetings still 3 days a week. We'll be now sending out a press release every day instead of 3 days a week. And I will be doing morning updates every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. on KMAN. And we'll continue our Facebook Live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4:15. And that's it. Any questions?
Nothing wrong.
Thank you, Julie.
Sure.
Okay, Dave, you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, give you an update here. We had another positive case that came in last night. That brings us to a total of 8. 2 are administrative staff, 4 are crew members. 1 was the host and 3 that were in direct contact. And then 2 were from communal living. We have a married couple, and then we have another 2 employees who spent time together off work when one of them was asymptomatic or even pre-symptomatic. So we will test a total of 25 staff as through contact tracing initially. And you know, there's still a little bit of question, but we weren't quite sure who the host was. So, you know, so we're reaching out and we're making sure that we have identified everybody who was potentially around one of the 2 people we believe were the hosts. I want to assure you that no one came to work sick. The virus that was spread at work is when they were pre-symptomatic. No staff came to work sick. And if somebody was at work and they started feeling ill, they were sent home immediately. You know, we worked very closely with the health department. They approved our plan back in late February, early March. We followed that to a T. You know, we think we've got a pretty good handle on it now, but we still have 2 or 3 tests pending. I should get those back today. So any questions about that?
John, Ron, nothing? Okay, thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Okay. I just want to address, you know, I know there was some concerns in the public about whether or not we should have made a comment about this outbreak at the 4:15 Facebook Live. And the reason why we didn't is I received a phone call between 3:30 and 3:40 on Friday that we had some positives, the 3 positives on that day. You know, my initial concern, Commissioners, was to get details from the health department exactly who was positive, process that information, then notify the on-duty captain to look at our shifts. We did have one person who was working wearing a mask who was asymptomatic. We sent them home immediately, you know, but we had to work through all of that. And, you know, that just took time. And you know, in hindsight, could I have said something? Yes. I didn't have information. And we were processing it. We were trying to figure out the situation, what was going on. So, you know, please, I mean this when I said it wasn't a conspiracy. The reason why I was on Facebook Live was just coincidence. They had asked me to do it Wednesday. I couldn't. And they just wanted me on because just, you know, the virus is spreading. People were getting nervous. Just let them know that we're here. We're taking all the precautions. Don't, you know, if you need anything, you know, feel free to call us. And just remind people, you know, we put a mask on them, our staff are masked, we're following our procedures. So, you know, I know it looks like it was planted, but I assure you it wasn't. We had made that decision on Wednesday that I would be on the Facebook Live on Friday. Then this weekend, I did have a Zoom meeting with our leadership team, our captains, myself and Josh, talk through our situation, work on some staffing issues, and kind of what was going to be our plan going forward. So, you know, as we said in the statement yesterday, the EOC team, we acknowledge that, you know, in hindsight, we probably could have done a better job of putting out some information, at least with the first positives up front. We apologize. We're not trying to mislead. We're just trying to work through this situation.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. Okay. Do we have other public comment? Okay, come on ahead.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Deanne Bro on behalf of the Riley County Reach Committee, and I would like to present July's Employee of the Month.
Okay.
Teresa Stewart, please come forward.
Good morning. Well, thank you.
Teresa's nomination reads, I would like to nominate Teresa Stewart from the Health Department to be considered for Riley County Employee of the Month. My reasons for nominating this person are, during the COVID-19 crisis, Teresa has worked tirelessly to care for our patients as well as our coworkers. She has ensured our clients still receive contraceptive service while the clinic is closed and has stepped up to collect specimens at the COVID-19 drive-through station. The health department now has a makeshift shower to keep staff safe during and after performing COVID-19 tests, thanks to her creativity. Her willingness to fill any need is truly remarkable and she deserves recognition. This was submitted by Erin Price, a public health nurse at the Riley County Department.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll have you say what's your desk.
Stay of distance.
You're good there. I'm having
Okay.
this move a little bit. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay.
I can't.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Tammy Robinson, Budget and Finance Officer. And I just wanted to give you a quick update on what we've discussed with the CARES funding and our consultant this morning. So just a couple of things to let you know. Thursday, I did update the Recovery Task Force on the timelines of the distribution as been put out by the Spark Committee. I did give them a breakdown of the resolution summary and then also let them know what we were working on with the consultant at that time. On Friday, I did watch a webinar on the CARES funding from NACO, and it did give a lot of information. Most of it I was already aware of based on the resolution. A lot of people were asking questions on things that they wanted additional clarification on. One last thing is we should be receiving some information from the consultant today that tells us what is eligible for expenditures, being more specific, and also a questionnaire, an assessment questionnaire that we'll be working on. Have been discussing with the Budget and Planning Committee on entities that would be available to give us public advertisement that this funding will be available. So I do have that listing. I've also compiled a listing of the municipal entities that we need to consider with this distribution and have forwarded that on to the consultant and all of our department heads at the county, as well as I did let the task force, all of those public entities know that they needed to be working on their information that could be reimbursed and anything that they would estimate throughout the end of the year so that we can get that as quickly as possible, because we do have to have the allocations as of August 15th. And they did clarify on that webinar on Friday that the resolution makes it sound like you have to give the money back by August 15th. You have to have it allocated on August 15th, and then September 15th, they'll take that money back if you haven't allocated at all. So I have been requested by the county clerk to come each meeting and just give you an update on where we are, because this is such a fast moving process, just so you're aware what's going on and what decisions will have to be made between now and August 15th. Are there
Thank
any
you.
questions or
I
concerns or
don't have any
anything
questions.
additional? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thanks, Tammy.
Does anyone else have a public comment? Okay.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Joe Mertz, and landowner out by the proposed, or by the new firing site. And I'm here to talk about the easement for one thing. And as it's been laid out there, there's a hairpin turn as you come up and make the turn and go back around it. And we would propose that to be put in and the turn be moved to the west, so it'd be more of a gradual turn. And we'd like to have buyer construction be there when it's laid out, and we'd be there so we can agree on the proper turn for it. Would be our goal. I put up hay for millers and Tarkio, and then we have ground up there. We put up hay on too. So
not to interrupt you, but I was also told you can't get your semi turned, is what you're saying.
yeah, that would be the goal of this, of moving the turn to the west, and where you could have a bigger turn, bigger, wider turn in there. Figuring out the way it's laid out now, the turn either needs to be bigger or else it needs to be moved, basically, I guess, would be my thoughts. The other thing I was going to comment about is on 56th Avenue, the bridge down there. 56th Avenue actually serves 5 different landowners, which we farm or manage the ground for the 5 different landowners. So I travel up 56th Avenue, our employees, but we're actually having to go across that bridge twice a day during the winter feeding cattle with a truck that is overweight on the bridge. We are having bringing 200. We have 200 acres of corn and soybeans that we're farming for Morris McNeil family back up there, that we are having to take it out on semis through the Hayden estate, where private ground, we don't have an easement. We're going through buyers is quarrying up in that area. We're also having to bring out prairie hay, brome on 200 acres that we're bringing out to the Hayden estate because the 56th Avenue road is not satisfactory. The township won't take a grader up on 56th Avenue because the bridge is too light to handle the grader. So I've been personally grading that road the last 10, 15 years. And, I would sure encourage you guys to take a look at upgrading that road and bridge. It's really should have been done a long time ago. So there ain't any questions.
No, I don't have any. I think.
No, I don't have any questions. I think on that easement, travel easement there, I think that's logical to try to make it fit so the equipment can make that turn without a lot of hassle. So I'm not opposed to that. And I do agree on that bridge. Should have been done years ago.
And it is on the list.
It is on the list. Leon, is that bridge on the list?
Yes, it's on the proposed sales tax projects.
Okay.
It was 3rd or 4th or something on that list.
Okay. What, to be done at least this year or next year?
No, it's on the proposed sales tax projects for the 2022 program.
Right, if we pass a new sales tax,
Okay.
it's not on.
If the new one passes, it's on the list.
Okay. But we can get the road straightened out.
Township.
It's a township road.
That's a township road.
Can't do that.
No,
He's talking the easement, aren't you?
the easement.
Oh,
I'm
the
talking about the easement.
Oh,
Clancy.
let me explain the easement a little bit. We laid that out, and we have run our semi truck and trailer around it and had no trouble with navigating the curves and keeping the trailer in a level situation so it doesn't tip for the very reason of hauling bales or whatever. So our next step was, we know Byers has a large piece of equipment that they use to go around there, and we're going to have them use that. If the Mertzes want to have a vehicle there to run around there as well, we can do that before we finalize the location. We didn't want to move it down the hill and put a tube in because that material up there is very mobile. And all we're going to do is be cleaning out that tube all the time. And so if we can keep the easement up on the top, it sure makes maintenance a lot easier. So that's kind of where we're at in laying out that easement.
Yeah, I think you could still keep it up on top of the hill and it would help a lot on the curve. But yeah, I agree. You really don't want to move it way down the hill and have to make a turn on the hill. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Neil.
Yeah, I'm Neil Horton, I'm with Buyer Construction. I would just echo some of Joe's comments about, and I'm glad to hear that Leon's going to lay it out and let us do a little test run there to make sure that everybody that uses the easement can navigate it well. So that we'll be looking forward to getting that opportunity. I would also agree with Joe on the upgrade of 56th Avenue. You know, you heard him describe quite a bit of agricultural commerce that takes place off of those properties up there. We have a piece of property there that we're somewhat landlocked on. And right now we're enjoying it because of the access, because of our business relationship with the Hayden family, but someday that will no longer be there. And so, you know, at that point, the only way to get to our property where the Tarkio landfill is either through the easement or 56th Avenue. And there's a lot of traffic in and out of that. You won't like that easement being used for the level of traffic that gets used to that particular facility. And it is the only CD landfill in the county. So, you know, we've got to have county access, public access to support businesses in the county.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Neil. Neil, as you know, and I know you work with the chamber, but that shows how important that half-cent sales tax is for Riley County. Because that's the only way we can afford to get those things done.
I would agree with that, Rich, but I also think that beyond that, the county needs to think about taking care of the responsibilities to provide public access to serve the businesses in the county, whether you have a sales tax or not. That is a necessary thing that needs to be done to expand our economic base.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
Commissioners,
Please could you state your name too?
okay, Fannie Fang, and I live in Manhattan, Kansas. Commissioners, while you are sitting here, not wearing masks and making light of life or death issues facing our community, COVID-19 cases have more than doubled from 103 to 215 in just the last 7 days. This outbreak is such a major public health concern that Fort Riley has banned all of their soldiers, thousands of them, from visiting our Aggieville district, which hurts dozens of our businesses who did the right thing and tried to be a part of the solution during this pandemic. For weeks, our community has been mourning and protesting the murders of George Floyd, of Breonna Taylor, and so many other Black lives. And this commission was asked twice on 2 different occasions to condemn these hateful crimes, and all 3 of you stayed silent and continue to do so. And now with K-State athletes refusing to play until their demands on eradicating racism on campus are met, we are facing another potential local economic crisis and heightened racial tensions. Commissioners, we are talking about people you represent. People in our community are getting infected. People in our community are losing their businesses, and hundreds are becoming unemployed. People in our community are being racially profiled, and people in our community are receiving death threats for the color of their skin. And yet, all three of you have stayed complicit in this and inactive on universal masking and on the racial tensions that are dividing our community. Those who know me know that I lead with compassion and honesty. So despite everything that's happened, I genuinely came into this meeting still wanting to ask you for your stance on universal masking and on this racial divide that's occurring right here in Riley County. But your actions and lack thereof already speak for themselves. You simply just don't care. This Riley County Commission, which also acts as the law board and the health board, is just not only out of touch with what our community needs, but also for whatever reason, so unwilling to protect our citizens and to build a better home for Riley County. Riley County deserves a commission that is proactive and actively engages with our community on what we need. And I look forward to the day when the commission accurately represents that. And that day is coming soon because today we have two community leaders who have adjusted their entire schedule to be here today to share their stories, their challenges, and what needs to be done for Riley County to be a more just and equitable place for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And if you, we got to condense it a little bit because we start our business meeting here very shortly. So.
Can I ask, why would you say that now when we're speaking, when there were other people who came in to speak as well?
Out of order.
That you can't just stand up and start talking. Okay.
We have a speaker up here, please.
I don't mind.
You interrupted
No,
the public comment.
The chairman.
So-
The chairman runs the meeting.
The chair has the meeting, okay? So let her speak.
Good morning, Commission.
Good morning.
My name is Teresa Parks, and I'm the co-founder of the Black Lives Movement here in Manhattan, Kansas. As a member of this community, as a co-founder of the movement, and as a mother of Black children, it's really important that we have leaders that not only share our values and concerns, but have the intestinal fortitude to ensure that all voices are heard and represented, okay? We should have the realistic expectation that professional integrity is going to be in play from our leaders, and trust that each of you are not just holding your titles, but you guys are willing to accept the responsibilities that come with them, okay? There are so many issues that have come up recently here in our community, from the rise in COVID positive testing to racial discrimination. And instead of taking a stand and speaking up on these issues, the silence from you guys has been deafening. It's clear from your inactive approach that the well-being of your constituents is not high on your list of priorities, if at all. While you guys may feel entitled to ignore the suffering and the struggles of the people that you represent, we have thousands of allies who also feel entitled to have their voices heard come election time. Let me be clear, I respect your titles and I respect your positions, but your titles in and of themselves do not carry the value if the people who hold them are not willing to step up and represent them and make sure that you're being active to help the people around you. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it seems like you have an obvious lack of caring here. I don't know if that's on purpose or maybe just from oversight, but something about that needs to change. We need to have a public trust with the people who represent us. We need to feel like you guys are invested in the same things that we are invested in that are gonna make our community work better. I don't come here to try to berate you guys or do anything like that, because we understand that it's gonna take people working together to make these issues better. And we would like you guys to be active participants and not just complicit bystanders. Because if you're not actively working against, then you are co-signing on some of the problems here. We would love to be able to partner with you guys and trust that our interests are the same things that are your interests, and that you guys would want to attack those interests with the best intentions for yourselves and for us. That's all we're asking for here. And it would be wonderful if you guys would maybe shift your focus from just the business and the money to the people who help you keep those businesses and money coming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Being that we have, this is important to say, go ahead, we'll run into our business meeting just a little bit more. So go ahead and state your name and.
Thank you. My name is Keely Proctor. I'm a local business owner and the wife of a paramedic. Commissioners, when I began preparing this comment weeks ago, my initial intention was to kindly request you start taking the COVID pandemic seriously. However, as I began writing, I realized these are all things people have been asking you to do for weeks, and what good would it do to repeat the same words? You've not been listening anyway, so I stopped writing. Then our local numbers doubled in a week, and we learned of an outbreak within the very EMS department you oversee. It was so frustrating to see that I picked my comment back up and started writing again. This is too important to ignore. The public deserves to know the truth. Coming here before you today was not an easy task. I had to find and pay for childcare for my 4 children and structure my day around this meeting, which highlights the reason these meetings should include a method for digital public comment. This government won't be fully accessible to its constituents until it does so. But nevertheless, here I am, and since heartfelt pleas haven't changed your minds thus far, I'll try a different approach. Facts. Facts that paint the failure of this county's leaders to protect its citizens. 5 positive cases at EMS were known about on Thursday. Based on what Health Department Director Julie Gibbs stated in Friday's press conference, 5 or more positive cases constitute an outbreak. She announced 4 outbreak locations at this public press conference. None of those were including EMS, and she still didn't do it today. They had the opportunity to be forthcoming at this press conference, but instead chose to talk about precautions they're claiming to take to keep staff and patients safe. And in the paper, an article was released yesterday where Director Adams stated on Saturday night, the situation was just learned about in the last 18 to 24 hours, but this is a lie. If I knew about it on Thursday, so did he. So which is it? Did you take precautions and still spread the virus to other employees, or did you try to cover this up? Or are you expecting the public to be held to a higher standard than yourself? It wasn't until Saturday night, the same newspaper contacted the director of both fire and EMS, that then a letter was released to the employees requiring them to wear masks inside the buildings to protect each other. This is something that several local businesses and all healthcare facilities have been doing for a while now. In fact, a friend of mine who works in a retirement facility shared with me their frustration with the lack of masks from EMS staff and disregard for the screening process when entering their facility. This is incredibly concerning. But maybe they're just following the example that's been set when their own director can be seen on video in this room, being at a large table side by side with other department heads for a lunch meeting with no social distancing and no masks. Where else are they not wearing masks? According to a Facebook photo, apparently to restaurants to eat with people who have recently traveled outside of our county. So which is it? Are we going to continue to pass the buck, or are we going to start holding leaders accountable for their actions? Because this negligence directly affects my family. If Riley County EMS stands for professionalism, compassion, and integrity, Director Adams has repeatedly missed the mark and should be relieved of duty. If the health department is going to continue to withhold information from the public and hold the public to a higher standard than they hold for themselves, then they can't be trusted either. If this commission is going to continue to not take this seriously and put our health, the community's health, in danger, then I implore the voters watching online to eliminate them from these emeritus positions of power and elect candidates that are going to be committed to putting the community's safety above their own self-interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the comments. I think they were all good. I will go with this route. I think individually, we all feel what you are saying. We know that. But this commission is not a political body. And we do not go out and do that as a commission. Individually, I totally agree 100% with what you're saying. And I think that it's, for each of us, we feel that. And if the others have comment on it, we'll go. I know that what you're saying about the mask, but that would violate a person's constitutional right to require them to wear a mask if they are well. It's their right to wear a mask or not wear a mask according to the Constitution. And it's been proven in other states that that happens that way. We have to be careful not to trump on other people's rights on those things like that. So.
So you're telling me you're going against the recommendations?
No comment.
No comment. It's my time to comment. It's time for the commission to comment, okay? It is constitutionally not right to demand people do something if they are not sick. So anyway, that's come out before. And other
Mr.
states
Chairman,
have
I
done
think we defer commission comments. We're past 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Time.
I'll go along with it.
I have some
Okay.
comments, and due to this discussion here, I am extremely concerned, particularly with some things that have happened here locally with the student at K-State and graffiti that was found up in the Clay Center area, and do feel like I need to take a little bit more of an active approach in the conversation and discussion. So I am willing. I've had a few groups reach out to me. There was a event over in Ogden. I didn't attend because part of the discussion with this increase in numbers, staying out of the public and public gatherings is probably a smart idea right now, but I have re-engaged with them to try to set up something individually, either by digital means or a small group or something, to try to have some conversations and try to get that dialogue. We're in a tough time right now, just all the way around the board, and it just keeps hitting us and hitting us and hitting us. And I feel like we are trying to do the best we can for the most part, but there are some things I think that, yes, we need to continue to dialogue, and yes, we do need to be part of the conversation. So.
Okay. All right. We need to do the business meeting then. Okay, business meeting.
First item, gentlemen, is the amendment to application for courthouse tax credits.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman, please. Item, gentlemen, is Heartland Works CEOB agreement participation.
I'll make a motion we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman, please.
We have a lot of commissioners on this thing.
Yeah, it's like 13 counties or something, if I read right.
Yeah, and then they got all the businesses that are behind it. Okay. Well, I guess I have to sign twice on this one. Signature of CEO to serve, and that's me. Signature of county commissioner, that's me. Signed both. got them all. Oops.
Thank you.
If I don't get them all, tell me. There's confusing there.
We'll do that. We'll do that. Next item, 2019 audit confirmation letter.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All three, please.
Mama Dear brought Junior up that afternoon to show him where Lonnie puts the corn.
My wife said, she saw a doe walking through the grass in our yard, and here it come hopping a little fawn. I had spotted it a few weeks ago, and I hadn't seen it for a while down in the creek. And so I wondered if something had gotten it, but no, she saw it the other day, walking through the grass in our yard, just hopping along. She said it was big, man.
Okay.
They're cute. Haven't seen any little turkeys yet.
You're right. I haven't either.
Next items, tax roll correction.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman, please. Next item, gentlemen, is Riley County Personnel Action Form. Sharon Rand, new hire, LPN licensed practical nurse in the health department, and Mila Mandel, a new hire, public health nurse in the health department. Then we have a late addition for Robert Cox. It's full-time, going to full-time. It's a status change. Just so the commissioners knows, we're hoping this status change will be able to be funded by the COVID-19.
Okay.
That's all in efforts of when David announced this morning that they are adding the contact tracing and adding individuals. So we conversed on Friday that this would be a good way to seek out someone that's familiar with the process.
On this one on the second page here.
Yep, I thought that was a white sheet under, didn't look. I got her.
On the other one.
The other one. You want to go on to the 9 o'clock one then?
Yeah, I suggest we take Clancy now.
Okay.
Board's okay with that?
Okay, not a problem.
Then we can catch up with business later.
We won't take him, we'll have him up here.
We'll have
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Just continuing to work on project as described previously. Not much to add on that, other than there was an invitation to a meeting led by the city and the invited initially had not, this is from, actually K-State was leading the charge of
Yeah.
getting this Zoom meeting set up. Set an invitation, included me, but it did not include an elected official from the county. Did include the mayor of the city of Manhattan to discuss various issues related to COVID, including upcoming funding issues from the 15 million. So I suggested to Linda she needed to add the chairman to that. She requested that Marvin attend, but Marvin has a conflict. So my suggestion would be that somebody, one of you needs to participate in that Zoom call.
Yeah, to be 1:30 to whatever, a couple hours on Thursday afternoon.
I can do that.
You
That's
can do
fine.
that? Okay, John, let John do it.
Okay, I'll let her know.
Yeah.
That was the primary thing I wanted to raise, other than, at one point, Ron, this relates to the church pews. You were gonna meet with Leon or somebody and look at what needed to be done to remove the pews so that it doesn't damage anything. Have you had an opportunity to do that yet?
What's it now?
And have you had an opportunity to meet with Leon or with Jerry and take a look at the church pews to see what kind of?
Well, I got an email back from Leon, said they're just a little L bracket. No, nothing complicated, so tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, I'll be over and to take the Historic Preservation Alliance group in, that I was gonna pick mine out, so.
Okay.
But no, he confirmed that with me, so I didn't see any need to tie them up for, because it wasn't complicated, like I say, just a little L bracket. And very
Fair
simple.
enough. I just wanted to double check with that. We do have a purchase offer. Mr. Vogely was over there from the Manhattan Brewing Company, and his offer is $10 for one pew. And so I told him I didn't know how enthusiastic the board would be about that, but I'd at least run it past you and see what you want to do.
I'm gonna put my application in, so.
Okay.
I don't have any.
I have a problem with that.
Okay. If you want any kind of restrictions on timing or anything like that?
Just somebody from staff needs to be there when he takes it.
Yeah, that has to let him in, so.
And you have a time limit in, just we have to publish notice of this, so you have to conclude the
Oh.
terms.
What was his name?
Vogely, Voegli.
Yeah, because we're gonna have to have an employee there, and I think perhaps maybe within 30, 40 minutes time to be there, you know, be
Well, I
here
was
at
less
that
concerned
time.
about the time there, other than the time to, I mean, when do you want this to end in terms of him being able to get
I'd
out?
say it need to be done in July.
Mhm.
Okay,
That's
sometime in
fine.
July,
Yeah.
and staff
Middle of
member
July
has
is
to be
fine.
present,
Yeah.
Public Works or elsewhere, only does it. And all expenses, all costs.
Right, are on the purchase.
Good enough, that gives me what I need in order to draft the publication notice and let him know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, that's all I've got unless you have questions on it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So 9:30 is the next one, I guess we can
Review the
finish
minutes,
it.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
Okay, page 1. Page 2. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. And page 7.
Move to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
How the tentative agendas look, gentlemen?
Good. Let's see, on the next Monday. Oh, fine. See, I've got to speak to the Solar Kiwanis at noon, so.
Yep.
I'll do that.
Yep, shouldn't go too long.
And just as a reminder for you guys, this Thursday I will not be here. It's the final consultation for Vicky. And gonna be a long day, and then it's gonna be even longer the following Thursday, because that's when she goes in for surgery, if everything goes well this Thursday. So, just to let you know that.
Okay.
And then after that, you probably have to put up with me, because she'll be back in about 5 days after the operation, back here at Meadowlark or somewhere for rehab. So vacation time for me is over after that.
Any items for next week's press conference, Shona?
I don't have any.
Okay, a little bit of break, 9:30, we have a press conference today.
All this excitement, I didn't get my coffee.
That's what I was gonna talk to
I
Christie about.
think we need to talk
I don't
about
think they
that.
should just go run around.
It's very distracting to me anyway, to have a picture taker just jumping all around back behind me and stuff, and I think that they take all the photos they need from the seat. So.
Ooh, my legs hurt. What's that? How much rain you get up north, Greg?
We got like 3/4 of an inch.
Oh, okay.
We got nice, we didn't get the county some places.
Enough to wet it down real good, take care of the dust from
Garden
after.
going,
Huh?
keep the garden going.
Keep your garden going. That's a whole nice thing. When he was in here last week, the ag guy, Stone, said $17 worth of water every time you water your lawn. Well, it depends on the size of the lawn, and
Grass. Keep the garden going, I don't worry about the
yeah,
grass.
if it's green, it's okay. And there's lots of plants that are green.
Eric. Your microwave on?
No.
What was exciting at your weekend? Most exciting thing you had?
Nothing really. I did laundry.
And when it got dark, it cooled off.
It did. You could sure see that haze from that dust cloud or whatnot yesterday afternoon pretty clearly. Workout yesterday just destroyed my legs.
That means it was a good one.
They're in bad shape today.
Means it was a good one.
8 sets of 10 lunges with a 25-pound kettlebell. Oh, they were sore.
Yep, lunges are good for you. As long as you get good knees that can handle it.
I'm wondering. I'm wondering. Tried to step up on the step stools and that wasn't happening. It was not gonna happen.
I remember doing squats so heavy at college, I couldn't go upstairs after it was done, you know?
Problem is, this will probably hurt worse tomorrow than it does today. Progress, I guess. Progress.
Are you starting on your cabinets yet? Are you?
Yeah, I got the uppers and lowers on one wall. I got one cabinet left to assemble this afternoon, then I gotta start building the doors and stuff. I wanna get that wall done, and I'll do the island and the other wall. So slow going, just too many interruptions, too much stuff going on. I went to peek on Wednesday for my teeth cleaning, and that usually shoots a day during there all over. On the hours of the day.
Yeah, that's true. It's be tough. Talk about what I'm doing. Or having to have all this work done. Stuff delays me in what I want to do. Used to have no problem. I just started arguing with me. She said, "Get out of my sight," and I just go do what I want to then, you know, and that was, it was deliberate on my part, you know. I could get more things done, but can't get in an argument with her now. There he is again. Young kids eating right in front of me.
It's a flaxseed almond, honey.
Go ahead, keep going. Dig it
It's supposed to
in.
be pretty as a kashi. It's supposed to be, you know, as healthy as a pre-made bar can be.
Very true.
High in protein, all whole grains, and tasty.
Keep it up.
These are actually really good. Not overly sweet.
Hopefully with this thing that she's gonna do, it's gonna cause her to lose some weight. I know it'll cause her to get her swelling down in her legs. Supposed to, that's what the doctor said.
It's hard to lose weight if you can't be active, and that's
I
the
know.
biggest problem, you know, with
Yeah.
people that have those severe heart things is, you know, it's a double whammy. You need to lose the weight, but you can't because you don't have enough breath to be active, you know?
So hopefully this will help. It's hard for me when I said I lost a pound yesterday and she looks and glares at me and says she gained 2, and so I get in trouble for losing a pound, but she didn't lose. And
You'll be okay, only until she asks for the key to the gun safe.
maybe we're okay. She can't reach it anyway. Now where I put it.
She's mad enough, she'll reach it.
She'll find a
Don't
way.
you think, Greg?
She'll find a way.
Don't you think, Greg?
Dang.
Be amazed at how fast and agile she'll be at that moment.
Oh, I tell you. I'm gonna put my health insurance on trial here. I think we're covered. That's good. I haven't paid anything outside of my regular health payments. Nothing out of the ordinary, no co-pays, no nothing. It's good. Covered me for everything. Well, it's time now for the press conference. Get the famous one and only Jerry.
You got that right. Well, good morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
Here to fill you in on a couple of road closures we got coming up. And the first one will be taking place tomorrow up on the School Branch Road, about 5 miles north of Fancy Creek. Be replacing the culvert up there. And School Branch will be closed from Fancy Creek Road to Jerusalem Road. And we anticipate completing that by tomorrow evening. The next one is up on Sin Road. And that will be starting a week from today, July 6th. And it's approximately 3/10 of a mile east of Union Road. So Sin will be closed to through traffic from Union Road to Walnut Creek Road. And we'll figure it on that one taking about a week.
I haven't been out west for a couple of weeks. I'll be coming to Keats.
I think they got the false work out. So we're moving along.
Yeah.
You got a question on McDowell Creek.
Mm-hmm.
How's it coming along? Are we close?
They're supposed to be paving today.
Okay. That's a good
Least-
sign.
At least first lift.
Okay.
So. Anything else?
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Morning.
I'd like to remind everyone to mail back their advance by mail applications, which were mailed out May 28th. I want everyone to know those applications that have been received, we've received well over 5,000 by now. The ballots for those, the first batch will be mailed out July 15th. I'm sure that's a question people are wondering, when will I get my ballot? We can't legally send them out until advance voting is allowed to start. July 15th is also the first day of advance voting in person, which we'll have at the courthouse office building on the second floor. The polls will be open as well. By state law, we're required to have polling place election this year as well. So people also have that option. Want to remind people to get registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote in Riley County and want to participate in this primary election, that deadline is July 14th. Very important date. So encourage people to do that. Go out to the Riley County website. There's lots of information on the elections. Call our office at 785-537-6300. We'll be glad to help anyone in any manner that we can with any question that they have regarding the mail ballot applications or mailing of the ballots.
Also, we do have our first casualty in polling places. Been notified we will not be able to use the Manhattan Fire Department on Denison as a polling place. That is a problem. Of course, it's being used for the EOC and the contract tracing, but that is a significant, we have a significant amount of registered voters that go to that polling place. Ballots have already been programmed as that polling place. So now we got to figure out where we can go, or where we consolidate them to, or potentially find another location, which I think odds are slim to none that people are going to welcome us during these times with open arms to another facility. And I still contend we're very likely to have other facilities that may tell us the same thing. So it's very challenging times. I think someone discussed here earlier. And so we'll do what we can do, but we will be notifying those voters once we've made the decision on where they will be required to go, those who wish to attend through the polling place. But because of these changing times, and it's changing daily, is another reason I just can't emphasize enough the convenience of the ballot by mail and also the advanced voting in person. But like I said, I don't know. Someone could tell me a day before the election's to be held that we can't use them, and all of a sudden we're scrambling. I've had it happen to me as close to an election as 2 days before when I was told we couldn't use the polling place. So a lot of reasons to try and get it done as early as possible. Any questions?
Nope.
No, there's quite a conundrum you're up against there, like I say, because if it keeps rapidly increasing, we may lose more places, so.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Rich.
Hey, gentlemen, we have Gary at 9:45.
Okay.
Something about trees. The old philosophy that the roots don't extend beyond the trunk line.
You were telling me that.
Well, that's just dumbfounded because it's just big wide open, and you hit the roots right where it turns down to go into the manhole, which is the only non-solvent welded joint when you're going from PVC to clay. And so I went looking, and there's two scrawny volunteer elms, well, further than here to that far wall down. And so I remember I mowed off the tops of the roots, and stuff, some long roots. So after the plumber left, I went over and was looking, trying to find a copper tree, and I noticed those roots on out to about 20, 30 feet, they turned and was heading towards the manhole. That's where they disappeared. Now there's probably others down below. So those two trees are going to be with the cord on.
I figured you already took care of that. I figured you already had the tort on to
They
them.
said that when you nip them off like that, you got, 30 days to put this foam down in there to kill the roots. And I said, well, no, I'm going to kill the tree.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'd definitely kill the tree. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah, there's either that or I'll take a chainsaw and drop them. I don't trust them to feel drawing. So even if I do that, it's going to be a heavy.
Oh, yeah, that's what I do. I cut them down, especially the black locust, which I have trouble along the edge of my feet.
Well, yeah, those, because they go, I used to rip them out down in the field with a cat, and then those roots clear out there, start popping trees up. So,
Yeah.
that's one of the worst offenders.
Those black locusts are a nasty tree to deal with.
Yeah.
Great firewood, but my method is I cut them down, hook up the old 80 Chevy pickup with a log chain and pull them up on the hilltop and let them decompose for a year for all the needles to fall off of them before you attack cutting them up for firewood.
Yeah, up there west of the lake on old Bill Stevens property, we always went for the Honey locust.
Honey locust, yeah, those are nice. That's good. Then they get bigger. They get big.
Away from the chambers, I'll give you an answer.
Yep, thanks.
Yep.
You're my favorite, you know? Don't like cold coffee.
Nope, I don't either.
Good firewood cutting weather, Gary. Yeah, that does. So is there any 4th of July celebrations or anything going on? Look like South Cape is having something going on at Lake Shawnee.
I guess they do fireworks every year, but I heard the carnival's officially done for the fair, so.
Mark Burgess having a car show at the cemetery there east of town at the reception headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be a lot of individual fireworks displays.
Looks like it.
I think will actually help the fireworks industry this year, the small vendors. I
Might.
think people are
Yeah.
wanting to do stuff, and won't have something to go watch.
Yeah.
Look on the national news, looked like they started across the nation here a couple weeks ago in the big cities.
I noticed the tents are up, feels like it's up a little early this year. Even around,
You know, they got the tents up, but
yeah,
they'll start their stuff. My neighbors do a pretty good job. I don't have to do anything. No.
Yeah, we used to. Sure gets expensive in a hurry though.
Oh, yes,
Oh,
it
man, it
does.
does.
So.
As a kid though, I got pretty spoiled with fireworks because my dad grew up in Ohio. And he came here Schilling Air Base. He was in the Air Force in Salina. But fireworks were illegal there, so they never had him as a kid. So when he came here, he was like a kid. You know, and so always a great fireworks place.
Randolph canceled their fireworks, or everything's canceled in Randolph, Leonardville? And you guys had something you did, but I don't think it's.
No, we didn't have, we didn't have Fourth of July,
Yeah.
the Fall Fest, but that's been canceled this year. And it was big, it was gonna be a big one this year. Canceled that. Last I heard, Hullabaloo was still on.
The who?
Leonardville, Hullabaloo.
I thought they canceled that one.
Last I saw, they still have not, I'm surprised, but.
I'll call Deanna up and see. You guys got a meeting tomorrow night, don't you? No, you don't. Had last week, Bell. I blew that one. Too many things going on. We're just trying to get to all the stuff.
So we set one of them off.
Okay, it's 9:45, Gary.
Well, good morning again, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Gary Rashavitz, Assistant Public Works Director. I'm here today to talk to you about the fees we charge down at the solid waste facility. As you know, we are a self-supporting entity down there. We receive no tax dollars. The last time we raised our charge for municipal solid waste was back in 2015. And we increased it from $48 to $50 with a $12.50 minimum charge. Prior to that, we had raised it in 2012. Raised it $3 back then. Last year, 2019, our ending balance decreased by about $86,000, which we had anticipated when we raised that fee to $50. That's kind of how it works. You accumulate some funds at the front end and then you subsidize it towards the end. And a few years ago, when we talked to different commercial haulers, they preferred a larger fee increase every few years rather than bumping it up every year. So that's what we've been doing, and it seems to have worked. During their December 5th meeting, the Solid Waste Advisory Board recommended increasing the MSW charge to $56 a ton. That was before we had gone out for bids for our solid waste vendor. And we are still in negotiations with them, but Leon and I feel comfortable with a $55 a ton fee. I believe that will carry us through for the next few years. I know our balance seems pretty high, $484,000, but past commissioners have wanted us to keep at least $250,000 in there as an emergency fund, which last year we came pretty close to tapping into that. We were looking at possibly having to relocate up to Byers Quarry for the flood. So, and then it's not going to take much. $200,000 will buy you a new crane, which we're still nursing ours along. Additionally, over the last few years, our tire vendor has been increasing prices, and we've been kind of covering that. That's mainly just a pass-through cost. We don't charge much more to the customers than he charges us. So we're recommending charging for small tires $4, medium tires $8, larger tires $17, and then if it's mounted, another $5. Other than that, we're not looking at making any changes.
Well, sitting on the board, I move effective September 1st, 2020 to increase the solid waste facility disposal fees for municipal solid waste to $55 a ton with a $13.75 minimum charge. And the disposal fees for tires to small tires, $4, medium tires, $8, large tires, $17, plus an additional $5 for a mounted tire.
Have a second on that?
It seems like that's what you're gonna need to have to sustain, and we need
Okay.
to be able to sustain that, so
Yeah.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Oh,
Yeah, I
thank
hope
you,
the
sir.
train keeps working.
Yeah.
At least another year and a half.
Boy,
I know
I
what
tell
that
Oh,
means,
yeah, I know where
Gary.
that's going.
Next, gentlemen, you have Josh Kyle, RCPD on the Edgefield substation. Door's open here, it's bothering me. Oh, there he is. Morning, Josh, how you
Yeah.
doing?
Doing good yourself?
Doing
All right.
well.
You ready for me yet, or we wait?
Have to wait till 10 o'clock,
Yeah.
please.
All right, sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Good, so. That little fawn kind of strengthened up and grew a little bit since last week when I saw him bouncing across the lot of mowing.
Oh, yeah, they
I
grow
think-
fast.
I think he's only a few days old at that time, but
I know that one of mine hasn't grown fast because, all my land's in soybeans, so they got
Oh,
fresh
yeah.
little soybeans, they're out there chomping on like crazy. You wonder how you ever end up with any crops.
Yeah.
The deer are out there eating those.
yeah, I know one year down in the bend of the creek, there was a herd of woodchucks and they just keep them about that tall. When the little green comes out, they got it.
Yeah.
But my, the one closest there, he watched me pretty careful when I put the bird feeder out. And he only stands so much and then he runs and hides, but, sure looks like you make a nice pair of gloves, Laney. He looked like, you know, she, real healthy.
Yeah, they got plenty to eat right now.
I forgot to ask you, Ron, how much rain did you get over the weekend?
Mary said the gauge she dumped it had a half inch. I think the peak had us at 4,600s.
It's been all the rain. I had an inch, I told John.
Yeah.
In our rain gauge.
Everybody down here was about an inch to somewhere about
Yeah,
3/4.
I had almost 700.
Well, I had-
I believe so, yeah.
Thumb drive for the presentation.
How you doing?
Well, I guess that was Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Before that, I had it over an inch.
It's okay to minimize the screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Saying may not like my thumb drive on my,
Morning, Dennis.
Morning, Dennis.
Hey, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
it's not, it said it didn't recognize the device. It recognized it, put something in there, but it,
If
okay.
you're gonna give it to me, I can see if I can copy and paste the presentation onto that. I can train on this laptop.
Oh. Doesn't like it, it has to scan, but it sees it. Let's see what's in there.
Looks like you're up at the top one.
That's it.
Morning, Jason.
How you doing?
Good, how are you guys?
Good, how are you?
Well,
So go ahead and put it in here. And then you share screen. And then you put this and you share, and then whenever you open on your computer, you share it to YouTube.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Mary.
You ready?
I am. So, good morning.
Morning.
Captain Kyle with Valley County Police Department. I'm here to talk today about the Aggieville substation relocation. With me is Director Butler, and I also have Lieutenant Greg Steer with me as well. Lieutenant Steer has been working quite a bit with architects and with the city of Manhattan. He's kind of the detail person, so if you have any detailed questions, I'll probably defer to him. I've given this presentation once before at the county meeting, so some of this may be a repeat for most of you, if not all of you. If there's any parts that you kind of like, well, we've heard that before and you want to skip through, then that's fine, I can do that. Or try to be flexible towards your needs. There are some updates though, as far as the designs, and I'll talk about that. So this is currently the Aggieville substation. The reason why we have a substation in Aggieville is that there's a lot of nighttime foot traffic. We've also found, looking at our stats, that there's a concentration of nuisance crime activity in and around the Aggieville area, particularly at night. As a result, the Raleigh County Police Department has foot patrolled the Aggieville area, well, since I've been an officer, since 1991. And in fact, beginning in 1993 is when this substation was established. It's owned by a third party. This is some of the facts about it. You currently pay about a little over $10,000 a year for rental space in this location. Certainly we appreciate it. Better than what we had before, which was, as I recall, an office in the back of a convenience store down the street that as long as we weren't bothering, we could use the phone in the back. And that was about it. And there's a little bit of desk space, but this is certainly a lot better than what we had. But it's grown. We've grown and it hasn't. So here we are. This is a photo from the front doors looking back. You can see it's pretty cramped. We're trying to do a lot of things at once. We have a couple of officer workstations. There's a seating areas right next to the door. And you can see where we're trying to store bicycles in the back there. And then there's a kind of a small, like, I wouldn't even call it a kitchenette. It's a microwave is pretty much what it is. And then when you go in the very back, there's a storage area there and a restroom. Currently, one of the problems that we have is anybody we bring in, particularly if we bring in multiple people, as you can imagine, we have people fighting, so we place them under arrest, bring them into the substation, and they're still wanting to argue. So we get in a lot of arguments back and forth. We currently have no way of holding anybody there in a secure fashion. So if somebody continues to fight in the substation, we have to try to maintain control over them until a car can get there and pick them up. This is the view looking inside out at the front door. This doesn't look too bad. You can see the chairs I was talking about earlier. When you sit people down and trying to get your business done and conduct interviews, it can actually be a really cramped space. In fact, this is pretty typical what it looks like on a Friday and Saturday night. The military personnel are courtesy patrol. They patrol with us and help us address any military issues that we may have. And you've got some civilians in the middle talking about something, who knows what. And then you've got the officers who are getting ready to take off and head out on the street. And then the cars there probably to pick up some of the officers. So this becomes very cramped very quickly, as you can imagine. Also, that the substation itself faces right onto Morrow Street. It's got open windows. You can tell that the address is probably set up more for a retail type space. And as a result, anybody on the street can look into, and if they desire to, fire into the substation itself. That may sound a little extreme, but 5 years ago, it was crazy that we would think we would need an armored vehicle. And 10 years ago, it was crazy to think that we might need rifles in every police car, but this is the situation that we're in. These are evidence lockers that are in the back little area that you saw on a previous photo. And you can see that the space is limited. Officers who are in Aggieville oftentimes accumulate evidence and they store them temporarily in those lockers. But you can see there's a trash can that's sitting there, and there's also some sort of tool that's leaning up against there because the space is very limited. You can also see that officers are trying to store some of their personal equipment for those lockers that are not committed to evidence. And then here's the bathroom. I point the bathroom out for one particular reason. Obviously, it's a single person bathroom, but also that sink right there is a eye station. Whenever we use pepper spray, we bring the individuals in there and have them wash out their eyes and flush out their eyes really well. Well, as you can imagine, it's not uncommon for us to have multiple persons that we use pepper spray on, so you can only decon one person at a time. So these are some of the issues that I've talked about up to this point. Any questions so far?
None for me.
No, don't have any.
Okay. So we have a proposal in front of us. City of Manhattan is building a parking garage at the intersection of North Manhattan and Laramie. And in those two locations that face the street, you can see one, there's a retail space. I don't know if I can use my mouse. Yeah, I can. So right here is a potential for a retail space that faces onto North Manhattan Avenue. Then there's a retail space, potential retail space that faces Laramie Street. The proposal in front of us right now is the possibility of building a substation inside the garage itself. The City of Manhattan recognizes that the potential for problems inside a parking garage located in a heavy trafficked area like Aggieville, particularly at night, having the police department substation located in that garage will hopefully have a chilling effect on any criminal activity that may be occurring in that area. There's also, on part of the proposal, is to have a camera system that's based inside that station as well. It'll allow us to not only be based out of that area, but also be able to monitor activity within that garage itself and hopefully avoid criminal activity from occurring. Right here is a little area that's for parking. This is for the City of Manhattan in order to control parking as people come in and out. One of the things I'll warn you about with this diagram, this is the latest I have, but this may not be the latest design that's currently being considered. And this obviously may be modified as time goes on. Also is the possibility of building a training room along with the substation. And I'll get into a little bit more reasons why. This is a close-up. Currently under consideration is about 4,100 square feet of space. This is the half that would be considered substation. As you can see, a lot of the issues that I discussed would be taken care of. This is a briefing area for the officers. This is an officer work area. This is also doubles as a place where they can make some food and have a sink. This is a holding area. There's space for multiple bathrooms as well, and there's some utility areas as well. There's also space to conduct interview rooms without being bothered by the other traffic that's inside, so you don't have to conduct an interview with everybody walking around you, and then also you can conduct an interview in a way that you can record the conversations. So this will allow us to address the number of issues that we've had up to this point. Currently, with the consideration, a retaining wall would be put in, which would prevent bullets from coming into the station itself. And then this is the other half that's under consideration for the possibility of a training space. So why a training space? Well, this is the current site of the Law Enforcement Center. We've been here since about 2000, and Ms. Director Butler has communicated several times we're running out of space at that location. There's the possibility of expanding the building both to the west and to the south. We haven't looked at a number of items. I mean, this idea or this thought hasn't progressed very far, so we haven't taken soil samples or anything else, but the possibility exists of expanding the building and creating more space. But that's obviously something that's going to cost a lot of money, take quite a bit of time to develop, and some of our needs are fairly urgent right now. Our biggest need right now is within our communications center. As you're aware, we've changed our radios, or we're getting ready to change our radio system over, and we're going to have to bring in new consoles. Currently, the communication center, as you can see, they're all located in one central room, and there's no console available to conduct training, especially training if you're trying to be quiet and segregated from the rest of the activity that's going on. Essentially, the training that occurs now with new dispatchers has to occur all in the same spot with everything going on. So you can imagine it gets pretty chaotic, especially for the newer employees that are trying to learn their jobs. One of our biggest issues as far as turnover is inside the communications center. And we can't say that it's directly attributable to the fact that they're in a fairly cramped space, but it's certainly a possibility. As you can see that, especially when things are busy, they're right on top of each other. And it's very difficult to concentrate and focus on what you need to do. There's also no space for restrooms that are immediately adjacent to that room. And there's no spaces for break rooms immediately adjacent to that room. So it's very difficult for them to take any breaks at all. Once you're in that room, you're pretty much in that room for 12 hours. And a lot of dispatchers, even though there are allotted breaks, really don't want to leave the room for an extended period of time, because the second you do, something happens and then you're not aware of it. So recently, several of us, this is the current training room for the Raleigh County Police Department. There's space limitations associated with that as well. We recently held a supervisors meeting, and especially with COVID-19 concerns, we were not able to get everybody in that room. We had to go find additional space elsewhere in order to hold our meeting. But this room itself is also adjacent to the communication center. The communication center, if you're looking at the photo this way, is over to your right. So we have the possibility of expanding our communication center into our training room and doing some of the things that we would like to do within that center itself. However, if we do this, we lose our training room. We lose all of our training space or training classroom space. This is not just classroom space. This is also utilized for any kind of physical training that we need to do. Those tables come out, the chairs come out, and we try to take care of some of our, for example, taser training, some of the training that's a little bit more physical. We also use this as a base of operations if we're going to train outside a little bit or downstairs. This is where everybody meets together for safety reasons, so we can clear everybody and make certain there's no weapons or ammo. As I mentioned earlier, a group of us went down to Dallas recently. There's actually facilities training for law enforcement. I didn't know such a thing existed, but it does. So a group of us went down to Dallas and we took a look at a number of police departments which had been built, a communication center which had recently been built. And you can see this is essentially what a modern communication center looks like. These consoles, and yes, they go up to 6 of them. These consoles are designed because each one needs different information. Each one will tell you something different about what you need to know. You can pull up a map on one console, and then on a screen, and then the next screen you can have all of your radio channels. You can have your CAD call system on the next screen. They need all these screens so they can keep up to date on all the information that's going on. It's hard to see in this photo, but there's a tower here. This tower is a light system. It tells you when a 911 call is coming in. It tells you when somebody's using the radio. It's a great way for everybody in the room to be able to see at once exactly who's on 911 and who's actually transmitting over the radio. These screens move up and down, so you can stand if you need to, or you can be seated. There's also cooling stations here. These stations get very hot and very cold depending on the time of the year. You can also see there's a big emphasis now on natural light. With natural light coming in, it reduces the amount of fatigue. People feel like they're not inside of a shelter, because actually, when you take a look at our dispatch center, this is all concrete block. This was designed as an emergency communications center. Most agencies that are using this new approach, they have an emergency communications center as a backup where they can go into that in case of bad weather or something else going on. But they dispatch on a day-to-day basis with natural light available to them to reduce fatigue. There's also a lot of options when it comes to lighting. Most dispatch centers are kept fairly dark, but each person has their individual preferences, and this allows them to do that as well. So as you can see, the idea here is to take this concept from North Richland Hills, Texas, and see if we can apply parts of that over here into the training room and build a space that we think our communication center personnel need in order to do their job, reduce fatigue, and hopefully retain them longer and train them well. So as you can see here, this is a training area that's available off of North Manhattan. This is K-State, I think it's Ag building. And we've used this site on several occasions. The idea here is that this is a large open space. It can be used for classroom training, but it can also, those chairs can be moved and we can use it as a multi-purpose room. The idea with the Aggieville space is, of course, one half would be a substation, but the other half would be a training space like this. When we were down in Dallas, Texas, one of the things that came up is it's very common for police departments now to have training spaces that are open to the public at some level. Now, one of the things they discovered at North Richland Hills is that if they opened it up to the public in general, they ended up with a lot of issues, like so many people wanted in there that it was jamming up their schedule and making it difficult for their use. They also had some trash issues as well. So what they did is they made it available to nonprofits. You have to give a deposit, and you have to be a nonprofit organization. And as a result, didn't necessarily compete with local businesses that offered the same kind of space. Because they had to give a deposit, it reduced the amount of trash, and because it was only open to limited groups, it reduced the amount of scheduling conflicts as well. But the idea anymore is that if a police department has a training space, it's usually available right next to the front doors, and it's available to the public in some way. This is another view of the same room. You can see that there's multimedia available at multiple parts of the room. This also allows you to break the training down into a couple of different ways, so that especially with COVID-19 concerns, you don't have to have everybody massed together in one spot or looking in the same direction. You can have people in smaller groups that are able to continue to see the presentation, but not necessarily have to be grouped up together. With the proposed location, the architect right now estimates that the cost for a substation would be about $443,000. That's this half right here. And should we move forward with the training space, that would be about $221,000. If I'm not mistaken, that ends my presentation. I stand for any questions that you may have.
John, anything?
I'm still kind of where I am on this. I think we need to be using as much of that space down in that section for retail still personally, but I do see the need for some additional substation space in the area though.
You know, I had more in mind, 1,000 to 1,500 foot, but like I say, that space, the city will own the park garage, correct? And so we need to, I feel the city needs to get all the income they can off of it. You know, if we take 4,000 feet, the taxpayers are paying, I assume, rent on tax dollars. And I don't understand that, but the training space could be done up at Genesis. I thought we had an agreement up there that there would be training space available, or room available, because of our people's training or working out up there. But I'm sure we can find training space somewhere. But right now, that 2,000 be pushing it for me on maximum in Aggieville. I mean, if not with, you know, we put a substation there, let's put a substation downtown. I realize there's more activity up there, but I realize the existing is too small, but that'd be the best I would even consider be 2,000 would be a stretch.
Dennis, you need something, okay.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Yeah, again, some of this is redundant, but also I think because we've been through so many presentations, it's worth taking the time to mention a few things that have come up during the course of this months-long discussion. First, I want to point out and remind you that the city had approached us about relocating the Aggieville substation. We didn't go to them and ask them for more space. So this offer was made. It seemed like a serious offer, and I think it still is. And so we started working with them with what you saw before you this morning. A couple of things that Captain Kyle mentioned, I want to just clarify and provide a little bit more information. You mentioned something about a camera system as part of the security. I want you to know at this point, I don't envision us monitoring that 24 hours a day. What I do imagine if the camera system is installed for the Aggieville district is that there would be cameras out on the streetscape recording all the time, and it would only be in those circumstances where a crime may have occurred or something notable that we would need to review. We would go in and pull the footage. The only other time that I would envision at this stage where it would be monitored is when we have a special event down there. I don't know if we'll ever have Fake Patty's Day again the way it used to be, but that would be an example where we would have somebody in there monitoring the large crowds live, where they could transmit information to officers who are working. Captain Kyle said we're running out of space at our current location. I'd like to clarify that we are out of space at our current location. That training room really is the only room in the building that can hold more than 8 people comfortably. When we have our quarterly supervisors meeting, which is supervisors from corrections, non-sworn and sworn, and the command staff, it's over 40 people. When I first arrived here, there was standing room only in the back. Now we've lost part of that as we're moving to the new radio system because they've got training consoles in there. So they took about maybe a quarter of the room. So now the capacity is even smaller. So anytime we need to have a large venue, we have to go find someplace else, and it's inconsistent what we can get and where we can get it. And in our current environment with COVID, it's harder now. People are not letting us into their spaces because of that. So having something dedicated as a multi-purpose room for our needs is really important. One thing, if you can, we don't have to go back to the slide. Captain Kyle put a slide up that was a bird's eye view of our current location. You know, when I first arrived here in Manhattan, I remember seeing that building thinking, wow, they got a lot of space here. And I didn't realize that about half of that rooftop is dedicated to the jail.
Yeah.
Most people probably don't know that. They probably think the jail is completely in the basement, but that's not the case. About half the rooftop to the north is jail space. So I was really surprised on the opposite end of the spectrum of just how little room there is in there for an agency of 220 employees. Also, when we talk about the multi-purpose room down next to the Aggieville substation, I was approached at one meeting by a hotel manager who was concerned that that free space would take away from their paying customers for their space that they would rent out. And that's when we started talking more after Captain Kyle and his team went to Dallas about just making it for nonprofit, so there wouldn't be that issue where we'd be competing with businesses for income for meetings. They would maintain their paying customers. At this point, 2 things. I don't know if Mr. Hilgers would want to address the security aspect of it. Again, that was part of their funding source in terms of grants, that this be, I guess, enhanced down in Aggieville, and it certainly would meet our needs more than what we are now. When you talked about, somebody mentioned crime, I want you to know we monthly track our crime data very, very carefully. It's how we deploy our resources. And consistently, since I've been here, the number 1 and 3 hotspot crime areas are Aggieville. And then there's others around it that aren't ranked as high. That has not changed. So there's definitely a need for heightened security down there, especially on nights and weekends. And if we can have a space that's going to attract more employees down there. And we talked about a parking plan too, so we wouldn't be using prime parking whenever we did have training. Then that would be something that we needed, whether it's the training spaces here or in Aggieville, we just need something. You know, we prefer it here because it's right next to the substation, but the needs are there. And we need to find something. So I'll answer any questions you might have.
Tammy?
So since they'll be bonding this garage out, would this be our costs over like 30 years as well? So it'd be around 20-some thousand
My
for the
understanding,
next 30 years?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Jason, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is the cost you're looking at is the cost to build out the existing space that will be there when the garage is built. So that's the build out cost to put in the drywall, the electrical, any movable doors, the furniture, things like that.
Correct. The question is what would our annual payment be? Would it all be expected up front, or is it gonna be through the life of the? If you go on up, Jason.
So to answer your question, 20 years is typically what we would bond projects for. Since this is in a tax increment finance district, we have 20 years of revenue that will help us with offsetting the overall $14 million garage. When we looked at the fire station headquarters, when we were going to expand EMS in that facility, we recognized that that improvement at that time was something we could also debt service and spread out over that 20-year period and allow the county to invest with us. We would bond it, we would take on that risk, and then look back for an annual payment from the county over that 20-year period. When we talked to the commission about this project, it has been similar. It has been allow us to make the improvement, full debt service, the improvements themselves along with the building, and then allow the county to pay us over a period of time, 20 years, to service that debt. Other comments that you all have brought to our attention today as well, I'd just like to address if I could. Income on the land. We've heard from people in Aggieville not very thrilled that we would be offering retail and commercial property in Aggieville. They feel like they have property that would garner that type of interest, and they would much prefer the private sector provide that. On the new market tax credit side of the equation, which is what we're attempting to leverage here from the garage and all the investments in Aggieville, two components that the new market tax credits are looking for. One, increasing security, not only in the facility itself, but in the district, as well as any type of relationship we can forge with the university that would institute some sort of incubator, startup, entrepreneurial type center. The new market tax credits are bullish on job creation, but they're also there to assist communities to address high crime issues. So this fits in both categories. The space that you're looking at for RCPD is roughly half of the space we have available. We're working with the university and the chamber on the remaining space. Really, we benefit as a community and as a city and as a TIF district seeing the private development around this grow. The Chins have property at the corner of 14th and Laramie. Currently, you see billboards there looking for tenant space. They're ready to invest. We have an investor ready to make a sizable investment in Rally House, buy Rally House and improve the second floor. We have other development interests starting to generate themselves on the horizon if we can get this garage moving this fall. So this relationship is, as the director and previously presented, is something we've been looking for to help us get this facility. We will generate revenue off parking. That'll assist as well with the daily operations, but the debt service on the garage will primarily be through that tax increment finance district. And the more private development we can see take place in Aggieville, the better that debt service is going to be taken care of.
So to understand this, well, it'd be 500,000 time we get there, but that would be spread over cost to the county, would be spread over 20 years. But But what would the monthly, is there a monthly rental charge then?
And again, you know, when we were back at the fire station headquarters, where we're all leasing from the university, I don't see this much different. Your comment earlier, why should taxpayers pay for other taxpayers' expenses? You know, that would be our approach as well, Commissioner. We obviously have to get it through our commissioner, but I don't see any reason why we would charge RCPD to be in this space and then turn around and raise taxes to pay that. So, you know, if we can come up with a financing scheme to get it paid for from a construction standpoint, then it benefits everybody, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to charge ourselves to do so.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rich.
What happens at the end of that 20 years?
I think that agreement needs to address that, Rich. You know, when we looked at the K-State property, we were all worried about things going away. I think we could create even a longer term on the relationship if we'd like to. Clearly, there could be improvements along the way that you all will need to make, and we can finance, you know, through a variety of different mechanisms. We have a lot more flexibility in issuing debt than the county. We realize that. So this partnership, in my mind, just continues as long as RCPD needs to use it.
I just have one last comment. So one of this is true of the range as it is here. One of the tricky things is you want to make certain that you address your needs when your building's at this level for the next 20 years. Because as we saw with the substation we're in right now, we've been there since '93. So once this is established, this is what you get for the next 20 years. And we want to make certain we place ourselves in a position where we address our foreseeable needs for that time period. So when we sat down and worked with the architect to design this, everything in here is assessed as a need that we have currently and what we perceive as a need into the future. We were very careful not to design, especially the substation, in such a way that a lot of wants were being fulfilled. And we use that same approach when we looked at the range. We have to have a range house. We have to have 2 ranges. These are the base minimum. We understand that this is what we're going to have for the next 10, 15, 20 years. We have the ability to expand in the future, but that's the future. Same thing here. We looked at our needs. Lieutenant Steer has been working with the architect and looking to design something that would fulfill our needs for the next 20 years. In fact, Lieutenant Steer went to a number of locations where substations exist in fairly significant areas, such as Kansas City and a couple of other locations. Arrowhead Stadium has a substation. He took a tour of that, took a look at that. There's also a power and light district as well that has a substation. And so it wasn't that we just came out of this just because it sounded good. We did our homework, and we feel very strongly that this is the base of what we need for the next foreseeable future.
Well, I think, you know, in part 2, as far as the additional space at the RCPD, we're somewhat suffering from the sins of the previous county residents because they wouldn't pass the 13.5 million initially for the initial. They only passed the 10 point some million, number one. Number two, should have never sold the adjacent property, which would, the RCPD headquarters is really where the training room ought to be, and we ought to have room for expansion on the communications. But like I say, that was done by previous people. They should have kept the land adjacent to the north. But like I say, once again, you know, we're looking about how many million on the firing range, on everything. And our hope was on the EMS new building facility would possibly contain the communications. And that's going to have to happen fairly soon. I mean, that's a necessity as shown by the coronavirus that happened to our EMS personnel, you know, due to the close quarters. So right now, I just feel we spent a lot of money just on RCPD, and I realize this will be a little ways down the road, but I was glad to hear that at least we don't write a check for that amount initially. Yeah.
So the last point is this proposal is not one large item. The reason why it's divided like this is, should you decide to move forward with the substation, you can do that separately from the training room. In other words, you can reject the idea of a training space and just go with the substation. That is certainly within the realm of possibilities. The second thing, or last thing I would say is, we absolutely have to have a base of operations out of Aggieville with the foot patrols and the bike patrols taking people into custody, concerns over the detaining personnel, and especially when they're fighting, how we deal with that. This provides us a situation where we can, if somebody is fighting with us, and we can't get them transported right away, we can put them into a cell rather than trying to hold them down until a car gets there. So we perceive this having some sort of base of operations in Aggieville as an absolute must.
I think I would agree with Ron on it, and I know you need it. We can, I guess, if it's either consensus
Well,
or
I'm open
motion.
to, well, further communication and work this out.
To go at it some more and see what's gonna
I
happen.
want to see the specific numbers of the entire process on our side, so I
Yeah.
still think we have some work to do there before coming to any conclusion whatsoever. So,
But when does it look like you'll start building?
We plan to take that parking lot out of circulation in October.
Okay.
They'll start prepping the site. Precast materials will start arriving probably in February or March of 21. We will finish this space out as shell space. So throughout the course of 21 and even probably close to the end of 21, total construction, and it'll be available, for finishing at that point. We'd be happy to provide scenarios for you financially. We can start talking with the commission and you all about, do you want to resemble something like we were going to do out at the headquarters fire station when we were thinking about expanding there? Those terms were kind of debated around and agreed upon until we got into other issues, but the relationship with the city and the county for that improvement seemed to be on par with what we're attempting to do here.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we got a little time to go over. Any other questions, guys, or anything?
Get her done.
Yep. Okay.
And Jason, just so the commission's aware of how the financing project ended in 2021, so first payment's probably not due till 2022.
Actually, it could be later than that. Temporary notes will go out at the end of this year, so 3.5 years before principal and interest would be due. It allow you 3 years to accumulate whatever type of payment you like to make. If you want to make a buy down, if you don't, and you did both of them, that $600K is probably going to turn into about $1 million. Divided out by 20 years, by 50 grand a year, would get you done.
It'd be good to have those numbers when
Yeah.
we get further
Yeah.
discussion,
Yeah.
just so they know that whatever commission knows when the
Correct.
starts. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Josh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other things that you might have?
Oh, can't think of anything right at the moment.
Rich, anything?
Nothing.
Tammy, anything?
Nope, we have a presentation for long-term debt that we're working out to do with you later, as soon as we're finishing up the audit and budget, and hopefully we can have some information and include that with it.
Will that be Thursday?
No, it's gonna be a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
And it'll take Jason a little while to get us those numbers, but
Okay.
just know that we'll stay in contact to make sure you have that information.
We'll do that stuff after the budget.
Okay.
I think calm down a little bit. We got enough going on with budget, COVID-19 right
Do
now.
do we have to vote Thursday on the budget?
Not until the 9th, July 9th.
Well, July 9th is I
Yeah.
won't be here.
Yes.
But I will be willing, if you need my vote, you can call me.
Gotcha.
Because I'll be, more than likely, the time that I'll be there would be the morning, but you guys need to vote. And I'll be in Topeka all day, almost.
We can pass it with 2, but I'll leave it.
You
up
know,
to the
I know, if you want a more unanimous thing.
Do we want to move
you
that to the
vote.
following Monday, or can we?
I have to have it has to be published at least 10 days before the budget hearing. That's
Okay,
why I
gotcha.
was pushing it to that point.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll have to,
but I can be reached. Okay, my phone will be open, so. That's the big day. Okay. as of right now.
Yes. And nothing has changed. Everything went through
Okay,
big
it's the same.
review, and so everything's the same as.
But
what
but
we
even
had
if
the
it,
last time.
even if it's the same and these two guys vote and I don't vote, it doesn't look like it's a unanimous vote.
Yeah.
So if you want a unanimous vote on it, do it. Then you can hang up right after that. Anything further?
No.
Clancy, you got anything else?
No, sir.
Okay,
Well, I'm gonna make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a
Thank
good
you.
week.
Okay.
Enjoy the hot weather.